Hi, I'm John Lee, and I try and make a separate channel for learning onyomi and kunyomi for Japanese, and I will be under the Karaoke King for the transition between Chinese and Japanese on that side. But this video will be about the age of information, as I am also what's the best way to put it, a 2D/3D production visualist for both graphics, film, TV, art and design, anatomy, science and technology. So there is a lot of things that intersect with each other and counter each other, and can be learned from one thing to another. And my experience with the age of the age of information, or information. Right, where should I start? It's a lot. My what's that word? My thoughts on how it has helped me through life, work, university, and everything else in general, and how it's affecting humanity. Well, first off, you have a pretty good science physicist, Michio Kaku, who states that the internet is a stage 1 telephone, and humans as a whole at the moment, as a species, is only at stage 0, and we're sort of building upon that in everything in our culture, from technology to science to medical to everything. Well, let's see where to start. The great cloud in the sky, the information highway, as they call it. There's this fine line between information online and putting on servers for private schools and stuff, as they're already implementing this kind of technology in schools that I've seen on the TV, where they're showing like flip laptops and stuff where the children can use it to bring up information for their classes and whatnot. That's good, to a certain degree, but then not everything can be found in one place. For instance, when I look up online for certain information, you can either get it from lecturers online or from books that are scanned copies of physical books online. But one thing about the physical books is half the pages are either crossed out for, well, not half, but some of the pages are crossed out for copyright info. So you're like, am I missing some major information? And then it'll make you think, oh, I need to go to the library to get that book, to find the page that they're blocking. Because Google does that a lot with Google Books, and most of the books that are like over 800 years old are all now in audio form, and it'll be spoken to you. You don't have to even read it anymore. Because my field is so diverse and it runs into more like blocks of things I can do and improve on, and they all interconnect. For instance, high dynamic range imagery, HDRIs. I've read 3 or 4 books on it. One like main manual of the thing, and then separate books, like 5 separate books that have little bits of information of it for different programs like Maya, Autodesk Maya, 3D Max, ZBrush, and then you learn to cross-platform them to see their strengths and weaknesses, and on top of that, then you learn what it is from the light processing side, the digital light processing from the camera, how it's implemented in medical technology, like because it derives from, because I learned the light and optics side of it, which derives from the electromagnetic spectrum. So you would have 14 eV, which is the point of human vision. 16 eV is just outside of the point of human vision. Exposure value, EV, and everything beyond 14 EV is considered radiometric. 20 EV is things like X-rays and infrared technology to see particles that you can't see with the naked eye. And then everything below it is photometry. So 6 EV would be print. Because it's electro and magnetic, you would have things like radio, which would be 6 to 10 EV for radio, FM and AM and FM. And high dynamic range imagery is good for rendering 3D scenes for movies, games, and TV. Although, if you're going to watch a movie like Prometheus in the IMAX, that is where it will come in handy, because the pixel depths for an IMAX, most IMAX are like 24-bit depth. You might get some that are 30, 32, 36. And then you have 48. A normal screen, normal 8-bit depth is just TV. Yeah, so they help it to light a scene, to render 3D characters, which I did for my final. I tried to do for my final thing, and I didn't understand the science and technology side of it until I finished my degree. I learned it in my own time afterwards. What that all meant, and broke it down to its core elements from photons and light and how it was processed through the camera. But yeah, and yeah, image-based lighting in Maya and 3D Max, and then they both have slightly different results, and then you cross-platform them to see which one would I don't know, would you say perform better? You could do, and then also ZBrush. And yeah, the technology is quite interesting. Because they haven't implemented fully 32-bit 4K monitors yet. The highest I've seen is like 14-bit at the most. I suspect ViewSonic will be releasing the first monitors, not TVs but monitors, that will do 4K full 32-bit or even 48-bit with auto-stereoscopy, so it projects the 3D without the glasses. Another thing I work on, because I also do creature creation and have to learn anatomy on top of that, which is also the epidermal and subdermal layers of a creature for projecting realistic skin, which they did subsurface scattering and high dynamic range imagery combined in Maya to make it look more real in movies like Prometheus. And then because the quality is so high, it takes like 3 hours to render like one frame, depending on your computer power, to render it out in Maya and 3D Max. So a full 3-minute animation took me like 3 weeks to render out in full HD 32-bit, and that's just using that. I was using 8 computers in one room at the university in Stafford, and I left them on overnight for like 3 weeks straight to and each computer rendered about something like, I think the whole thing was maybe 700 frames long, so about 100 frames a computer or something like that. Just recently I came across a video where you can learn to hack the CPU and the CPU and the RAM, not the RAM, to make a virtual render farm. Because what the major companies do, what they did for Prometheus, is they took, they hooked up, the CPU and the GPU graphics cards, they hooked up like 30 of them to one machine, and used it as a render farm, and it was a lot quicker. I think they managed to render out like all the frames, because they had more frames than I did. They had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of frames they rendered out within a very short amount of time, maybe a couple of days at the most, and all high quite highly pro with that they are, and people do that for games as well as movies. You can get full 32-bit monitors, which is good for HD. But 32-bit Blu-ray players have been out since 2009. There was one. I have one. And I have a 32-bit thing, so I can have the full cinematic experience, because a normal cinematic thing probably only goes up to 15-bit depth, pixels per inch. Or should I say 14, which is why these 4K curved TVs that have that basic level at the moment, the nano technologies, not even that. I think nano one was only like 12-bit or 10-bit. But yeah, some ViewSonic HD monitors are full 32-bit and are compatible with the 32-bit Blu-ray player for that full immersive experience, which is higher than standard IMAX. Unless you see something like, because the highest, there's a documentary in 1996 that showed like different places in the world. That was shot in 4K for IMAX. No, sorry, that was shot in 11K for IMAX. And recently there's what's that space one called? That was shot in 11K. The one with the lady, the space station gets blown to pieces and she goes floating around space. Gravity, that's it. Gravity was shot in 11K. Yeah, so the nano crystal is only 10-bit. And they say it's full HDR, but that's just a selling ploy. Don't believe them, because it's only standard HDR. True color is 24-bit at 281 billion colors, 1.7 billion. And then bit stream, which is 42 to 48 bit. Yeah, deep color, which is the XVYCC compression for which is higher than true color. Yeah, that I guess that could, yeah, full 99% RGB, ARGB. No, it must be more than that for Radiance files. It would be RGBE. 16 bits per channel, and 4 channel, and the E is alpha. Is also, yeah, no, sorry. RGBA, the A is in alpha. RGBE is an external thing for compressing compressing visual content for creature creation games and stuff for EXR files, which is open source for Maya and tons of other programs. So I'm guessing 3D Max has that as well. Yeah, so Cinema Gamut extension for the... Yeah, this is why some of the Blu-ray here, extended 4K color, has the deep color XVYCC encoding. Try and focus it. Yeah, so I could get that full experience on my HD TV, which no 4K TV won't have for at least another 5 years. There's some prototypes in Japan, but they cost over $5,000 to ship it to UK or America. It probably cost you that much just to get it. Prototypes for the autostereoscopic full 32 or even 36, 48 bits, which would be Rec 220 for 8K or higher. 4 to 8K or higher. No, 5 to 8K, because Rec 709 will be is standard HD. It's weird because setting up HDR in Maya, I didn't know that Maya had a node editor. I knew 3D Max had one, but you could create in the node editor. You can create a setup for professional HDR renders to be connected to high image-based lighting in Maya for creature creation, which was nowhere to be found on the internet. There was one tiny little hint telling me where to go, and I read 5 or 6 books and did not have the answer. I can't remember how I found it in the end. I think the lecturer had to give me some information on it, because it doesn't matter where I look, I could not find anywhere that professional level of understanding. And this is coming back to the age of information, because some information you just ain't gonna find, mate. The weirdest stuff can happen, like if you go into VFX industry, there's more than one way. Some of the people that worked on things like someone with Guillermo del Toro. A lot of people who do science, technology, maths, not maths, but physics and anatomy, actually managed to get jobs in the VFX production industry for creature creation, because some of the knowledge for that, when you're creating anatomy, say the head, you got to know the muscles, how the muscles flow around the mouth when you're animating expressions. So you would have the frontalis, the temporalis around the side, the mentalis down here, the orbicalis oculi around the eyes, the quadralis on the nose, the procerus between the... Yeah, it can go on. There's 44 muscles of the face in total, but you sort of gotta know some of it if you're gonna animate realistic creatures. You don't need it so much for games as much, but it can help if you're doing really, really realistic creatures for games. Just a bit of it. Yeah, so that life sort of sways weirdly. Like, it's like, oh, someone just did a degree in games design, but someone who's never been in the FX, did much FX work, is now in FX work. And you're thinking to yourself, how does that work? Well, I took this thing that encompasses all these things because it doesn't define you what you learn. It's how you take it and implement it and learn other stuff along the way that helps. If that makes any sense at all. And it's been proven time and time again. What was that movie called? Also, the internet as a whole can help people if they know where to look. For instance, knowing your rights. That if you're autistic like me, if you have some sort of disability, because I'm Asperger's and autistic, and what the job centre in England did not tell me when I signed up is my rights in Section 5 for disabled people. They just looked over it, pretended it wasn't there, and I found it on my own. If it wasn't for the internet, I'd have to go to Citizens Advice or something similar. But the problem with that is they might not ever find it like I did. I found a lot of stuff in my own time that some people probably would never find and want, or they'd just brush it off and be like, try and make it worse for you, or don't bother. Not all people are bad, but that's how the job centre treats most people, to a degree, and they try to force people to work in places, ridiculous places, like this plant factory, food factory downtown. But because of Section 5, I found out that they can't legally make me work there. What they're doing is pushing people off to work there without need to, and there's no need to. They're just doing it to make money. And I know some of them are really pushed to get people off their system. But it does. The internet saved me there. I would have never known if I didn't. Otherwise, I would be. I have this other problem at the moment. This medical problem, and I can't work in places like that. It wouldn't be good for my medical problem. But I could leave that for another time. But yeah, there's one thing, and also life in general. Like if you're sad or depressed, you can find people online who know what they're talking about, who been in the field of psychology for years, and you can watch a video on them talking about their what they do at university to help others. What the Freud, WFT, WTF, yeah, WTF. My brain's going because I have to learn all this stuff. They say you can only hold so much information, and then it pushes out old information when you have to learn new stuff. And me learning Japanese, and 3 writing systems, and visual effects, and anatomy together, it makes me wonder, what am I forgetting? What's being pushed out of my brain? To make room for all this other stuff that I'm learning. The internet is good in a way that you can find people, you can take people's bullshit if they're lying to you. Yeah, you sort of find out, like you can find out. It can even help people who have religious problems or ideological problems, or see perspective of other people's way of life. If you, trying to really think how to end this now. So, when making a female creature, some reptilian humanoid-like creature, you start off modelling from the basis of humanoid character of female form, or even male form, depending on what you're trying to make. In this case, I'm making this creature called Solver. Learning it from scratch without learning anatomy, because Solver is not just going to be skin. I'm going to try and create her from the skull up, which I've done a few skull, because that's what a ZBrush comes good, because you can make realistic skull and then put the flesh, the muscle flow over the skull, and then animate the muscle flow to move with emotions, and some books help more than videos, but some videos help more than books, and then you sort of put them together and you create your own understanding of how to do something. And then it's not just taking notes and practicing, it's doing it so that you have a grasp of doing it efficiently enough to do it over and over again without having to go back to the practicing basics. So you can do it without thinking in a way, and do it well. When you're under stress, like at uni or college, you have a timeline. It's good and bad at the same time because it's testing how much you can do at time, but then it's bad because if you make a mistake, you waste time. You don't have much time to fix that mistake. You can't. It sort of sucks you into this void where, oh, well, I'm gonna probably have 4 hours sleep, get up, try and fix the problem. You sort of march on like some soldier. You get up, you go, yep, 5 a.m, wake up, had 3 hours sleep, try and finish this for, say, 5 days later, the deadline is. And then say you got 1 day to learn anatomy and the next day to model the anatomy correctly, but then you realise it takes 2 days, and then you've got to put that all together. You've got to learn how to bind the skeleton of the creature to a thing, to a rig in Maya or 3D Max, whichever people are more helpful with, or if you're really good, you would cross-platform if you're really good. And it depends what level you're at, because if you're on the last level, they expect you, if you're in year 3, they already expect you to know how to properly rig, texture, light, and do anatomy. But at the same time, some things are like, you might know anatomy, but you might not know how to model anatomy properly in the correct position. So that plays on you a bit, and then you go, make this. You go, and then if you want to do environments, you have to learn how to do dynamics, or old school backshot. What are they called? Where like a realistic painting. Yeah, they've been doing that since like the 70s, or even earlier. I'd say 50s. Roto painting, no? And then you've got to learn how to composite and edit it and render it out. And then you've got to learn how to work in a team, different people, if that's required. Most of the time it's required. Because as I'm diverse in my subject matter, I have to do the equivalence of 20 different groups of people, sort of like an overseer, like a CEO, like a which probably plays with my autisticness, because my autisticness makes me focus on several things at once. High functioning autistic, maybe. Get really into detail. Like a supervisor who supervises over 20 different, or should I say 10 to 20 different things. So you would have the lighting, you would have modelling, texturing, lighting, rigging, animation, rendering, dynamics, cloth, compositor, editor, cameraman, modeler. That's not 3D modeler, that's traditional creature modeler. Pyrotechnique. I can do like 80 to 90% of all that. But then there's this weird thing where you have to specialise in maybe 5 of them 20 things and be really good at 5 of those 20 things that counteract each other. So for me, I'll probably say that if you say creature creation, then you're really saying 10 things at once, at least. Because if it's creature creation, it could just be to start out with, it could just be concept art, that's drawing, to digital art, and then on top of that it'd be 3D modelling, knowing how to work the wireframe, how to keep the mesh clean before animation, and then how to apply textures of bump maps and stuff to that, and then how to apply certain nodes for realistic skin. And then I didn't do much of it, but it could come in handy someday to do some Mel and Python script, which would manipulate anything within that contents, and that will go back to Notepad, where you can manipulate it with DivX and not DivX, what they call it. Active. Another type of code you can find in, I think, C#? Part of C#.